Beau Burchell is the founding member and guitarist of the band Sailsin, and the producer behind bands like Census Fell, Era, Moose Blood, Hail the Sun, The Bled, and countless others. Beau's signature ToneHub library from STL Tones was engineered by Beau for this ToneHub pack. Drawing inspiration from tones Beau has used on countless records spanning his 2-decade-long career. In this video, we'll be going through all the ins and outs of Beau's ToneHub and giving you examples of its versatility by using it on different styles of rock. Let's get into it. Disclaimer for full transparency before we get started, I was mentored by Beau for several years, and the STL Tone team did send me this copy of ToneHub and Beau's expansion. However, with that said, no money has exchanged hands, no favors have been asked, and neither party will see this video prior to the upload. I made this video of my own volition because I thought it would be fun, and all the opinions expressed in this video are mine and mine alone. Now, with that said, let's have some fun. Beau's ToneHub expansion comes with 77 presets, 8 amplifiers, a Marshall JCM 800, a Marshall stock 1987X, an Otis custom amp, a Bad Cat Linux 50, a PV6505, an EVH 5153, Hughes & Kettner tri-amp, a top hat, and the speakers used were a Celestion V30, Celestion Creambacks, and a Mesa Boogie 4x12 V30. The mics used were the Shure Unidyne 545, the Shure SM57, Aurora 121, and an AKG C414. There was 3 different types of distortion pedals used: an 808 Tube Screamer, a VFE Focus, and Isosceles Boost pedal. All these tones were engineered and captured by Beau with no additional processing, so it's going amp, cab, to mic, to pre, and that's it. There's no EQ or compression after the fact. It is left open so you can process them any way you want in your mix or productions. Let's take a look at the ToneHub interface so we know what all the thingamaboppers do. So we have the preset menu, and Beau's came with 77, as I mentioned. Then we have the blocks right here, and the way you can tell they're on is they turn purple when they're engaged and then gray. You have a stomp, an amp, cabinet, equalizer, and effects. In the stomp section, you have 1 compressor, 6 overdrive pedals, a graphic EQ, and then a volume and a wah pedal. The amp section is really allowing you to modify the amp controls. Think of it more like how an Axe-Fx, a Helix, or a Quad Cortex allows you to move the rotary knobs, but the presets will go to the lit LED, so the parameters will change. That's what it's doing here. You do have a bias control and a SAG control. We have our cabinet block, which allows you to virtually move the IR pack. I will say a pro tip, move the resonance up to 60% if you want it to sound close to a realistic amplifier and cabinet in a room. Then we have the equalizer section, and this has a high pass and low pass filter, a low shelf, a high shelf, and 2 mid-band EQs, and a master and an on and off switch. And you can tell it's on because it turns purple over here on the left-hand side. Next in the effects block, we have a delay pedal, a reverb pedal, a chorus, a flanger, a phaser, a tremolo pedal, and lastly, another reverb pedal that also gives us a shimmer option if we want it. And one cool thing about the effects block, if you right click, you can also have an effects trail spillover. So if you're switching for live or whatever, this will give you that realistic trail that you would get in real life. Then under the block section, we have our input, a gate, a tuner, an input level listener, and then our MIDI controls. With the MIDI controls, what's really cool is you can right click on any preset and parameter, and it will learn that preset or parameter for MIDI control. So if you want to control this live or in a studio with a MIDI controller, it makes it really, really easy to do. 2 issues that I have with this particular interface right here is this input level listener. In the manual, it states that it's very important to have the input level listener on so that it can adjust for the virtual gain circuits in the plugin or whatever, so you get the most optimal sound, which is great. It's awesome. I just think it's really annoying. You only have this indicator, and anyone who is using amp sims, they don't know what that means. They know what a tuner means, they know what a gate like MIDI, but this doesn't mean anything to anyone. What this should be is a button that's right above the input that says like learn, and then have a little description next to it so people know. They turn it on, it automatically adjusts for the pickup, and then underneath, instead of input, it says like input trim or something like that. But I think having this right here, and it's been so crucial to making ToneHub sound great, I think it's a weird design issue. One other thing that might seem weird is when I click this menu, I want to click here to get out, but I have to go click this X. It doesn't seem like a big deal right now probably, but when you're moving fast in an actual recording session or mixing session and the client's there and people are in the room, you just want to click out. You don't think about that X, and it might not seem like a big deal, but trust me, those milliseconds count a lot and add up. And then another 2 things that I noticed about ToneHub that was weird compared to Tonality. I understand that these presets are designed and engineered by the engineers, but there's no mixer mode, which it would just be cool to have that blend as opposed to like duplicating the track and then balancing those 2 different ToneHub tone packs. I feel like it should just be an option for someone to engineer. And then the other thing is not really ToneHub specific, it's more amp sim specific for all amp sim companies. But why do we not have like A, B, C, D comparison options? Like Plugin Alliance is really great on on their plugins, they do this. They have the A, B, C, D option, but also doing grouping. The only plugin that I know that does the grouping in the way I'm thinking is the Slate Metatune. Allows me to group different background vocals based on like group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. Now, where something like this would come in handy is like, let's say you have 2 sets of guitars and another 2, which make your quads. And with those quads, you're trying to find the optimal blend. Now, with the way ToneHub is set up is I would have to either link those tracks together and hope that the presets follow and there's no weird stuff happening, and or I would just have to make the tone, duplicate, bring it back down, and that all eats up time. If I could just group those tones within one plugin instance of ToneHub or any amp sim for that matter, and then have an A, B, C, and D option, like if I had an actual amp switcher in the plugin, I could easily find those blends for 4, 5, 6 different types of guitars very quickly. Again, this isn't ToneHub specific. I just think that every amp simulator should have that in 2022 and moving forward. I don't know why that's not a thing. And lastly, we have our output. So now that we understand the layout and what all the thingamaboppers do, let's go check out some guitar tones. So let's break down these pop punk rhythm guitars. On the amp section, I used a Marshall low gain because I didn't really want too much distortion. Plus, I knew I was going to have all these other distorted layers come up, so I was going to build up. So I dialed this to taste. Stomp box section, I added just a little bit of compression for consistency to make the low end of the guitars come up a little bit more. The cabinet section, I moved it a little bit, but the resonance is at 60%, which I mentioned was a great place to put that at. On the equalizer section, I brought up some high mids, took out some low mids, and did some filtering, and that was it. And here's the tone in isolation. Next is the second rhythm guitar in the chorus. On this one, again, I went through presets, found the one that sounded right, adjusted everything. Cabinet section, again, I didn't move the microphone much, but I added more resonance. And then on the equalizer, I did pretty much the same type of thing. And with the other two. And then on this lead guitar, found a preset that works. This one I went with the Marshall 1987 stock. On the pedals, overdrive, and then some compression. Cabinet section, again, 60%, didn't move the mic, and then equalizer is doing the same type of thing. And then effects, I added some delay and reverb. So this second lead is pretty much the same settings as lead guitar 1. The only difference is I messed with the wet and dry reverb to get a little bit more ambient sounding in the background. Then on the palm muted verse guitars, in the stomp section, you can see I have a little graphic EQ going to give them more snap, a little bit more bite. Here's the amp sections. Here's the cabinet, again, 60%, and the equalizer. Here they are in isolation. And let's take a listen one more time to these chorus guitars in solo, and then I will bring them into the mix. Let's go check out another track. Let's go over how I dialed in this metalcore track. Pretty much the same process. I just went through and found the amps that I wanted. As you can see in the stomp section, I pretty much kept it on the overdrive. I tweaked the amp settings to taste. On the cabinet section, I did move the microphone a little bit. Resonance is at 60%, like on everything else, and EQ, just the high mids a little bit, and some shelving, just to get those guitars to pop a little bit more. Now let's take a listen to the main rhythms in solo. On the guitar lead, I went with the JCM 800 sound with the isosceles boost pedal, and then I added some compression on there. On the cabinet, I didn't move it. I just added the resonance of 60%. Got some EQ going on, and then some effects to make it sound all verby. Now let's take a listen to the main leads in solo. And then on the intro tremolo pick guitar, I've got the top hat, got the cabinet going, didn't change the microphone, just added 60% resonance, a little bit of EQ so that they go more in the background, and some effects. Now let's take a listen to the tremolo picked guitars in solo. Now let's hear all the main guitars in solo, and then I'll bring them into the track. Sick, let's go check out the last track. So on the main rhythm guitars, I went with the Marshall 197X stock. On the stomp, I do have compressor, overdrive 3, and some graphical EQ going on at around 800. Cabinet section, not much has changed. Resonance is at 60%. And then on the EQ, some high pass filtering, taking out some low mids, bringing up some of the high mids, and then some shelving. And let's take a listen in solo. So now let's check out the chorus lead. I went with the Triumph with the 808. Stomp box section, I just have the overdrive. Cabinet section, I have the 60% resonance. On the EQ, doing the same thing as I did on the other guitars. And then on the effects section, I do have the delay, reverb, and some chorus going so I can get some of that eeriness. Let's take a listen in solo. Let's take a listen to all 4 rhythm guitars in solo and then bring it into the track. If you found this video helpful, do us a favor and boop that like button below for the almighty YouTube algorithm. We greatly appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video.